Okay, how to write a 1,000 word paper. To begin with, there are three things that an academic paper is basically testing when you're writing it at school, or even if you're writing it professionally. You probably have no idea what those three things are. What makes an academic paper different from, what makes the kind of paper that you're going to be writing for me here this time different from, for example, the midterm reaction paper or something like that? What have I been asking you to do? Okay, a clear opinion. That is going to be part of it. Yeah, yeah. You wouldn't be able to write a clear opinion until you'd done this. Okay, right? It's okay. You're right. I mean, that comes up. That's going to be number 3. Okay. You need to be able to research a topic, and this is really important in this age that we live in right now, because this is the information age. So, just being able to stand up and give a bit of information like you do in a presentation, well, that helps your speaking skills, it helps your confidence, and it communicates some information that may be useful to people. But information is cheap these days. Okay, when I was a student, information was worth a lot more, because to get the information, you had to go to the library, you had to get the book out, you had to find the right information on the page. Now you can just Google your way to a web page, and inside the web page you can do a search inside the page to find the bits that you want. So much easier, okay, and so much more of it, easily available, much more than there ever was in my school library, or even at university, which had one of the biggest libraries in the world. But still, there's much more on the internet than there can be in any library. So your ability to kind of find your way through that stuff and find the right stuff. Your ability to present the results of the research. Okay, I'm going to show you the structure for how that research gets presented. That's the second thing. Okay, obviously you can't put all the information you've got, on the page. You're going to have to choose things, and that kind of leads us into the third thing, which is presenting the results in the form of an argument. That's like what you're saying about an opinion. An argument really would be the word I would use, but I think you've got the same idea there. Let's take a little bit of a look in detail at what that would involve. Researching a topic, that would be all those research databases that you get through the college library, through the university library database system, JSTOR, Literature Resource, Project Muse, that sort of thing. And of course the library. I mean, actually, there's nothing wrong with going to the library and getting a book out, okay? In fact, that's a good idea, all right? But these days, so much is available online. And usually we've just got an idea for a topic. Like, I'm kind of interested in following up this stuff on bullying, or I'm kind of interested in single parents, or no, I'm actually interested in Nick Hornby and what he's writing and what he's trying to do, or whatever it is, okay? And we just start looking around at stuff, like I encouraged you to do last Thursday, okay? You looked around, you found a particular paper to focus on a little bit. You keep on looking around, and as you're looking around, you very often find some kind of topic that people are debating. All right? Like, if it's bullying, it could be somebody has the radical idea, we should always talk about bullying, but we should never punish anyone. Why would they say that? Surely the bullies should be punished. No, we should not be punishing anyone. We should just be trying to find out why they're doing it and get them to think about it. And we might start off thinking, that's a terrible idea, that's never going to work. And we might read their argument and end up thinking, oh, actually, that might be better than what we're doing. Okay, because we always think of the bully as the bad guy and we should be punishing them, and maybe that's not the right way to think about it. Okay, so maybe we get persuaded or influenced by something, or at least we want to explore the different arguments and try to find, what do I think inside that kind of debate. So we need to find something that is debatable. All right, and well, the example I've given here is masculinity and about a boy. All right, what is masculinity? What different arguments are there about masculinity? Is Will a real man because he's a playboy? Does that make him a real man? Does it? What is and what else? You might get us involved in some kind of interest in gender and the way that gender was being looked at 20 years ago. We might want to contrast. You might want to say that book's old-fashioned already because things are changing so quickly in society. Okay, so we would research the topic and look at some sort of debate that's going on inside the topic, and then we get more into trying to think, what do I think about this debate? Okay. Then we're going to want to present the results of the research. And it's really important in these kinds of things not to go in saying, I know what the right answer is. Okay, you need to be open to persuasion yourself. Think about it from a scientist's point of view. If a scientist was conducting an experiment and said, I know what the result is going to be, you'd think, wait a minute, isn't that the wrong way around? Shouldn't you be doing the experiment and then reporting on the results of the experiment? And what we're doing is, it's not scientific, all right, it's different, but we should be trying to say, I research the topic and I try to use my understanding as well as I can, and this is what's come out at the other end. Rather than going in with a fixed idea and say, I'm going to prove that my fixed idea is right, because then what's going to happen is you're just going to choose the things that agree with your argument. You're going to pick, I won't look at this paper because it goes against my argument. Okay? No, we should be trying to be as objective as possible, okay, and look at the different arguments and try and figure out which argument is a good one and which one's not a good one. Sometimes in our paper it's a good idea to say things like, this argument I disagree with, and I disagree with it because. Okay, so it isn't all about I think this, I think that, all the things that that you agree with. You can also be talking about things that you disagree with and why you think it's wrong. Right, that can come into your paper as well. And then finally, putting it into the right kind of shape. And this is, as I say, it's what makes it different from just explaining information. You're arguing something. You're trying to persuade people. And it is different from science, because in science, it's like, well, we did the experiment, that was the result. You can't really argue with that. But we're doing something it's always arguable. Okay? You're trying to persuade people that your way of looking at it is right, or that, what are the good reasons for that way of thinking about it, okay? So I'm going to show you a basic structure, which is called the 1,000-word, 5-paragraph essay. Your paper may be a bit longer than 1,000 words. It may be a bit shorter than 1,000 words, okay? But I'd like you to try to follow this basic pattern when you write your paper, this basic structure. It gives you something to build on. It gives you a shape to work with. It gives you a structure. And we usually work better inside a structure. When you get really good, you can break the rules. And you'll find that not all papers follow this structure. Okay, if you look on the internet at papers, some of them will follow this kind of structure, but some of them won't. Okay, but more and more this is becoming the kind of basic structure for academic papers. And it's a little bit different in Japan, and I think you'll notice as we go through, in what ways it's different from Japan, the typical traditional Japanese way, but it's also different from the traditional Western way. 100 years ago, people weren't writing papers the way that I'm going to show you today. But it's becoming, it really, I think it comes from American discourse. They want to know what's going on, and they want to know now. Okay, so don't keep me waiting, because my time is money. Okay, I don't want to be hanging around. So give me the goods. All right, in the most efficient way possible, and that's what we're going to be taking a look at. So the other thing that we're going to be needing to think about is the fact that it's written in formal style. So we don't talk about kids, we talk about children. All right. We don't use things like you know and kind of, things which are used in conversation but are not you're not going to see them in formal writing. I'll be helping you again with that, and we'll look at that separately. I'm not talking about that topic today. I want to stick with this structure. And this is your structure. All right? Yeah. I'll put it in Japanese just to sort of, so you can relate to it clearly. And I'll take it, as I go through point by point, it will change to English. So top left, how to write a paper, I've said, I keep forgetting little bits that I want to change. It's not just a literature paper, it's a paper, okay? It would be pretty much the same for all kinds of humanities paper, all kinds of, shakaigaku, rikishi, pretty much that kind of paper. And it starts with, hello, not forgetting to put your basic details on the top of the page. And it's amazing how many people forget those. Yes, yeah, all right, it's good, it's very good, but who wrote it? Who wrote it? Okay. Okay, you'll be sending your paper by email, so I will be able to check with the email, but put it on the paper itself, okay? So there's no possible confusion. And we obviously the paper has to have a title, and I think I might have said the other day that a good title usually has like three pieces of information in it, sometimes more. If it was a literature paper, it would be the topic, the text, and the author would be, okay, Bullying in About a Boy by Nick Hornby. You've got three basic pieces of information there, okay? But it could equally well be Bullying in English High Schools, okay? Again, you've got three pieces of information that tie it down, and kind of think of three pieces of information as a good number to have in your title. Could be more, it's not usually less. And then how do you begin? How does the paper begin? Now, please notice that I'm talking about all of this not from the point of view of how you write it, but the point of view of how somebody will read it. They'll start with the title, okay, and they'll move on. You don't necessarily, when you're writing it, start with the title. You might decide on your title quite close to the end. Okay, so same goes for your opening introduction, your first paragraph. Quite often it's a good idea to write that, after you've written the main paper. But the reader will read it. That will be the first thing they're going to read. So we jump in with the introduction, and the first paragraph of the 5 paragraphs is an introduction. What sort of things would go into the introduction? Well, we want to put information that connects back to that title, all right? So that we wouldn't want to say things like, Nick Hornby is a very popular writer. That would be wasting time. It would be wasting space. We've only got 1,000 words. You say 1,000 words. That's such a lot. But actually, once people start, they start putting in things like Nick Hornby is a very famous writer. Okay, I've only got 9,993 words left to write. Oh, that's great. His book was published in, and I don't care, because it's not connected with the title of your paper, and it's not researched information. It's something anybody could write. Okay? You could start, you're writing about Nick Hornby. Okay, Nick Hornby is a very famous and popular writer. You're writing about Harry Potter. J.K. Rowling is a very famous and popular. You can do it for any paper, can't you? Okay, so what's the point? All right, we don't need that kind of stuff. We need stuff that's really directly from the beginning focused on your title. This is your title. Okay, tell me about that. Okay, from the beginning. Don't waste any time on other things. And then, once you've explained a bit about that kind of background, the usual thing is to tell the reader what your ketsuron is, what your thesis is. What are you going to prove? What are you setting out to do in this paper? What's it all about? What's it for? And then you typically summarize the 3 reasons that support your thesis, the 3 arguments that are going to support your thesis. And so that's all summarized in the first paragraph. It's a little bit like going to the station and there's a train and it tells you, that this train is, what is it? It's Takao-Yuki stopping at, where would it stop? Mitaka, okay. Hachioji and that place in between. Okay, so it'll be telling you, where the train's going and where it's stopping, where its main stopping points are on the way. So, okay, because you don't want to go to the station and be told, we don't know where the train's going. Okay, you can find out when you get there. Because your American reader is going to say, sorry guys, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to read to the end of your paper to find out what it's all about. I want to know right now if this is something that I'm interested in, if this is something that's worth, putting the time into. So we put all of that in the first paragraph to show the reader where our paper is going. And then in the main body, we have 3 paragraphs. And as you probably would imagine, paragraph 2 will explain your first argument in detail with references and, that according to this writer and this researcher and this information that I found out, okay, this is my first argument. And the second one comes in like that in the 3rd paragraph. Okay, and your 3rd reason comes into the 4th paragraph, the 3rd paragraph of the main body. That's pretty obvious structure, isn't it? That's pretty clear. Okay? And so on then to the conclusion, and I am not going to be too strict about the conclusion. It's really difficult to write a conclusion that doesn't basically just repeat the introduction or say the same things as the introduction in rather similar words. It can be done, and I'll show you how it can be done, but I'm not expecting you to be able to do that in this first paper, because frankly, even professional writers who write academic papers, like professors at universities like that place, Sophia, and things like that, even they have difficulty writing that conclusion. It's the most troublesome part of the paper in a lot of ways. Okay, so I'm not going to be too strict about that, but if you think about it, you've explained your first argument, you've explained your second argument, you've explained your 3rd argument, but your thesis has just been one short sentence. So now you should be able to explain your thesis in more detail because you've explained your 3 arguments for supporting the thesis. Now you can turn to the thesis itself and tell us more about it. Because the reader now knows the reasons why you support it. Okay? So that's what it should be in theory, even though it may not always work out like that in practice. So basically that's the structure. Are we there?
what's happening. That should be it.
Okay. All right. Should we carry on with this last little bit about footnotes, which you may not need. You don't. Not all styles have footnotes. Some ways of doing it have footnotes. Some have references. Most of it is connected to the same basic principle. And if you think about the principle, then the practice becomes easy. What's the purpose of references? Anybody? Why do we have to do them, other than the teacher says we've got to do it? What's the purpose of the references?
If we don't put the references, we can make up the article as...
Yeah, so that the reader can find that and say, oh, right, so this information comes from here. If the reader wants to find out more about it, the reader can go there and read that paper or read that book and find out more about that information. Yeah, good. And also, like, confirm, oh yeah, that writer really does think like, because sometimes people say, I've had, for example, I published a paper about Shakespeare, saying that Shakespeare was not Catholic, okay, as far as I was concerned, or at least there was no proof that Shakespeare was Catholic. The student took something from my paper saying, according to Professor Wilson, I don't know how he did it. He just took out a little bit about Shakespeare was a Catholic. Okay? So I had written that there is no proof that Shakespeare was a Catholic. You can guess, you're getting the point. The student proudly handed me a paper saying, I used your paper. And the student okay. All right. Okay. So sometimes we want to be able to go and check, okay, let's see what that author really says, or have they just taken one statement out of context? Okay. So yeah, basically the reader reads your paper wanting to be able to check where you got your information from and see if there's more information that's useful, or confirm that you are properly using that source, and that kind of thing. And let's be honest, teachers are using it to check that you're not plagiarizing and copying and pasting your paper from somewhere else. Okay, so it has that as well. There are lots of different ways of doing it, but if you think about the reason we do it, then it will help you, because you think that's enough information. The teacher or the reader or anybody can easily find exactly where that information came from. And it doesn't matter, I don't care what system you use, as long as you use the same system all the way through. I'll show you two basic systems here today. One style uses footnotes, the Chicago style. And it would be something like that. Sorry, I photocopied it. What did I do? I don't know how I ended up with the red lines and the green lines. But anyway, you can see little note 1 there. It's using it for a quotation in this case. The sirens and the daughters of the sparrows. Okay, and it goes in here. Where does it come from? The authors, the book, the publisher, the date, and the page. Author, book, publisher, date, page is the typical one if it's coming from a published book. Okay, and it gets put in a footnote like that. So that's the little mark
inside the text, and that corresponds to the note at the bottom of the page. It's not rocket science. And so the Chicago style uses footnotes, and the MLA style is the main other style that's used, and that uses in-text references, and at the end it gives a list of works cited. So it will look like this. Inside the text, it will look something like this. Okay, and it will have short little bits in brackets like that. This one has the person's name, the name of the person who wrote the book, and it has the page, 122. This one only has the page, because the author's name is already in the sentence. Okay? If there are two books by the same author, then they put the year. They put Wallace 1977 and Wallace 1984 or something, because there are two books by the same writer. Okay? So that's the system that's used in what's called MLA. That's probably the easier system to use, to be honest, but it doesn't matter which system you use. It's your choice. And that's okay, except that, of course, I don't know who Wallace is and I don't know who Rigg is. So I can't, that's not enough information for me to find the book or the web page or whatever it might be. So at the end of the paper, we get something like this. Oh, sorry, Wallace, yeah. Okay, yeah. I've explained all of that to them. They know. Okay. You get a list like this. Trust me to pick an example where there's a mistake. Can anybody spot the mistake in that? It goes Rigg, Ridley, Tarkoff, Wallace. Ridley should come first. Okay, because we put it in alphabetical order by Myoji, by family name. Okay? When you've only got one or two, it doesn't really matter. But suppose you've got 20 or 30 or 50. You know, sometimes people make a lot of references. So we want them in alphabetical order by the family name. Okay? Sometimes it's difficult because there might be two authors. In this case, Ridley Nicholas and Latimer Hugh. Okay? Again, I wouldn't do that. I would just put Ridley Nicholas because, you know, and Hugh, I would just put his name normally, Hugh Latimer, because his one doesn't matter about alphabetical order. It's the first one. But hey, I'm not going to be fussy. All right? The basic idea is to make it easy for me to find those books. So I can find Wallace, I can find Rigg, and I can find the book, and I can find, if it's a book, these are all books, but of course if it was web pages, it would be the same. Okay? So Rigg comes first, should come second after Ridley. I only just noticed that this morning. And Wallace comes after Targoff because it's in alphabetical order. That is it. Okay? So I'd like us to understand those are the basic aspects of the structure that we're going to need in order to be able to write a decent paper. And if it doesn't make sense, or if you have any questions, or you say, in this case, how do I do my reference? Or is this a suitable argument for my paper? Okay, that's all the kind of thing that I'd expect you to contact me about. Okay? So I can keep in touch with you as you're doing the writing.